The park was quiet in the way that only forgotten places could be. Tall silver-leafed trees arched over empty paths, their leaves humming softly as if whispering old memories. A lonely human man sat on a wooden bench near the dry fountain, his shoulders slumped and his eyes fixed on the ground. He had come here every evening since the city lights began to feel too heavy. Here the stars were faint but honest, and the silence did not judge him. His name no longer mattered to anyone, at least that was how it felt. Once he had been a teacher, a caretaker, a person with purpose. Now he was simply someone who watched time move without him. Tears slid quietly down his face, not dramatic or loud, just tired. He did not notice the soft footsteps approaching through the grass. The little alien girl stopped a few steps away and studied him with wide, glowing eyes. She was small, no taller than his waist, with skin that shimmered like moonlight on water. Two delicate antennae curved gently from her head, twitching with emotion. She clutched a small stuffed creature under one arm, clearly nervous but determined. She had seen him crying before. Every night she and her mother walked through this park to learn about Earth customs. Her mother had told her that humans cried when their hearts were overloaded. The little girl did not fully understand hearts yet, but she understood sadness. She stepped closer and tugged gently at the edge of his coat. The man looked down in surprise, wiping his face quickly in embarrassment. For a moment neither of them spoke, the air thick with uncertainty. Then, in a soft, trembling voice, she whispered, "Don't cry, sir, you can borrow my mom." Her words landed strangely, innocent yet profound. The man blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. She hugged her stuffed creature tightly and added, "She makes warm soup and listens very well." The man let out a broken laugh that turned into another wave of tears. But this time they were different. Something in his chest loosened just a little. The man crouched down slowly, so he was closer to her height. He did not want to scare her or misunderstand her kindness. "Borrow your mom," he repeated gently. The little alien girl nodded firmly, her antennae glowing brighter. "My mom says nobody should be alone for too long. She says loneliness makes holes in people." "I think you have a big hole," she said matter-of-factly. The honesty strung and soothed him at the same time. Before he could respond, a taller alien woman approached from the path. Her presence was calm and steady like gravity. She wore simple robes that shimmered softly, and her eyes held deep patience. "I see you have made a new friend," she said kindly. The little girl nodded excitedly and explained everything at once. The woman listened without interruption, then looked at the man. "You are welcome to sit with us," she said. Borrowing in her language meant shared presence, shared time, shared care. No ownership, no obligation, just being together. They sat on the bench together, the little girl between them. The woman offered a thermos of steaming soup that smelled of unfamiliar herbs and comfort. The man hesitated, then accepted it with shaking hands. As he drank, warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with temperature. No one asked him to explain himself. No one tried to fix him. They simply stayed. The little girl leaned against his side, completely unafraid. She pointed at the stars and asked him their names. For the first time in a long while, he tried to remember. The nights after that became a quiet tradition. The man returned to the park not out of habit, but anticipation. The alien mother and daughter were always there, waiting without expectation. He told them stories of Earth, about rainstorms and classrooms, and laughter echoing through hallways. The little girl listened, with wonder, asking questions that made him see his memories differently. The mother listened too, her gaze steady and compassionate. In return, they shared stories of their world. A place where community was survival, where children were raised by many hearts. where borrowing care was not strange but necessary. The man realized how starved he had been for simple human presence. Not romance, not achievement, just connection. Each night the ache inside him softened. One evening he admitted his fear, that he was afraid to need people again. The mother nodded slowly. Needing is not weakness, she said. It is proof that you are still alive. The little girl squeezed his hand in agreement. Weeks passed, and the park no longer felt empty. The trees seemed brighter, the paths less worn. The man began to smile without forcing it. One night he asked quietly, "What happens when borrowing ends?" The little girl frowned, confused. "Why would it end?" she asked. The mother smiled gently. "Borrowing only ends when someone chooses to leave. Until then, care renews itself." The man felt something shift inside him. He had not realized how much he feared abandonment. Yet here it was addressed without drama. He began volunteering again, teaching neighborhood children under the same trees. The alien girl proudly introduced him as her Earth friend. His life slowly filled with purpose again. One evening, as the stars shimmered brighter than usual, the man sat on the bench alone, waiting. He was not sad, just reflective. Soon footsteps approached, and familiar laughter followed. The little alien girl ran ahead and hugged him tightly. "You look better now," she declared. The mother sat beside him and handed him soup as always. Borrowing had turned into something deeper, something mutual. The man looked at them both and felt gratitude overflow. Not because they saved him, but because they reminded him how to stay. The bench beneath the silver trees was no longer a place of tears. It was a place of shared silence. And that made all the difference. The change did not arrive all at once. It never did. It came quietly, like dawn slipping between branches before anyone noticed the light. The man began arriving at the park earlier each day, not because he was lonely anymore, but because the place felt alive now. Children from the nearby streets wandered in after school, drawn by the open space and the strange comforting feeling the park seemed to hold. Some recognized him as the teacher under the trees, the man who listened without rushing. Others simply sensed safety and stayed. The little alien girl loved these afternoons most of all. She sat cross-legged on the grass explaining Earth games with complete seriousness. Her laughter rang out like small bells, startling birds into flight. The alien mother watched from a distance, pride glowing softly in her eyes. She noticed how the man stood taller now, how his voice carried warmth instead of exhaustion. She noticed how he laughed without immediately checking himself. One evening, the park was louder than usual. Not with joy, but with tension. A group of adults argued near the entrance, voices sharp and restless. The man felt the old fear stir inside him, the instinct to retreat. But then he felt a small hand slip into his. The little alien girl looked up at him with complete trust. "You help people now," she said simply. So he did. He approached the group calmly, listening before speaking. He heard worries about safety, about outsiders, about change. Fears that sounded very familiar to his own past. He spoke slowly, not trying to win, just trying to understand. He told them what the park had become, a place where loneliness softened instead of hardened, where children learned kindness without being told. The alien mother stepped forward beside him, her presence steady. She spoke of borrowing care, of shared responsibility. Her words were strange yet comforting, like music in a new language. The tension eased, not because every problem was solved, but because someone had chosen compassion over withdrawal. The man realized then that healing had not just happened to him, it had moved through him. Later that night, As the park grew quiet again, he sat on the familiar bench. The silver trees whispered above him, leaves glowing faintly. He felt tired, but it was a good tired, the kind earned by being present. The little alien girl climbed onto the bench beside him, swinging her legs. "Did you cry today?" she asked curiously. He smiled and shook his head. "No, but I remembered how it feels," he replied honestly. She nodded, satisfied. "Remembering is important," she said, "because it helps others." The mother joined them, sitting with grace. "You have become part of this place," she told him. "Not because you stayed, but because you cared." The man looked around the park. At the paths where he once walked alone. At the bench that had caught his tears. At the space that now held laughter. He understood something then that he had never learned before. Loneliness does not disappear when someone arrives. It fades when we allow ourselves to arrive fully. The stars above seemed closer that night. The man felt connected, not just to the two beside him, but to the quiet pulse of life around them. As they stood to leave, the little alien girl hugged him tightly. "You do not need to borrow my mom anymore," she whispered. "You know how to be one now." The words hit him gently and deeply. He knelt and hugged her back, careful and grateful. "Thank you for lending me hope," he replied softly. They walked away together, footsteps blending into the night. The park remained behind, no longer empty, no longer forgotten. A place where a lonely human had learned to stay. And somewhere between the silver trees and the shared silence, borrowing had become belonging. And belonging had become home. Time did not rush them after that. It slowed, as if the park itself had decided to breathe more carefully. Days blended into weeks and weeks into seasons, each marked by subtle changes rather than sharp endings. The little alien girl grew taller in ways that surprised the man. Her antennae curved with more confidence now, glowing steadily instead of flickering. She asked deeper questions, not just about stars, but about choices, about fear, about why humans hurt each other when they did not want to. The man did his best to answer honestly. Sometimes he admitted he did not know. Sometimes he admitted he was still learning too. She liked those answers best. They made him feel closer, more real. Not an authority, not a protector, but a companion. The alien mother noticed the change as well. She saw how the girl leaned on the man not out of need, but trust. She saw how the man no longer flinched at responsibility. One evening, the mother spoke quietly as they watched the girl play among the trees. "In our culture," she said, "time chooses people. Some are chosen to pass through, others to stay." The man listened, sensing the weight beneath her words. "Are you staying?" he asked carefully. The mother smiled in that patient way of hers. "We stay as long as we are needed," she replied. "And you," she added gently, "are no longer only the one who needed us." That truth settled into him slowly. He had become someone others leaned toward. Someone whose presence created space instead of emptiness. The park reflected this change openly. Benches were repaired, paths cleared, lights fixed. People who had once passed through quickly now lingered. The man organized evening gatherings, quiet ones. No speeches, no programs, just shared silence and conversation. The little alien girl called them listening circles. During one such evening, an elderly man sat beside him and confessed his fear of being forgotten. The man did not rush to reassure him. He stayed the way someone once stayed for him. The alien girl watched this exchange closely. Later she asked, "Is this what borrowing looks like when you are big?" The man smiled. "Yes," he said, "this is borrowing time." As years continued their gentle work, the girl reached an age where questions turned inward. She wondered aloud where she belonged. Between Earth and the stars, between human customs and alien truths. The man listened, recognizing the ache. Belonging is not a place, he told her. It is where you are allowed to change without being left behind. She sat with that quietly, then leaned her head against his shoulder. I think this place lets me change, she said. The mother watched them with eyes full of gratitude and something like farewell. Not yet, but someday. The man sensed it too, the slow approach of another threshold. One night beneath a sky heavy with stars, the mother spoke again. My people do not stay forever, she said softly. We leave traces instead. The man felt fear stir, but it did not rule him anymore. What kind of traces? He asked. The mother gestured around the park. The kind that grow, she replied. The little alien girl hugged him fiercely that night. You will sit on this bench even when I am far, she said. I will, he promised. When the day finally came for departure, it was not dramatic. No alarms, no crowds, just quiet preparation. The park held its breath. The girl stood taller now, brave and glowing. She pressed her forehead to his, a gesture learned from him. Thank you for teaching me how humans stay, she whispered. The man felt tears rise, but they were steady ones. Thank you for teaching me how to arrive, he replied. The ship lifted silently beyond the trees, leaving no scar in the sky. The park remained. So did the bench. That evening, the man sat down as always. People joined him, children, elders, strangers. Time sat beside him too, no longer something to fear. He understood now that loneliness was not an enemy. It was a signal, and connection was the answer he now carried. Under the silver trees, life continued. Borrowing turned into teaching. Teaching turned into legacy. And the man, once lonely and unseen, became part of the quiet structure holding others up. A bench for those who needed to sit.